Hey, it's Nikki, and this is how to create an experience that will be remembered. People do not remember entire experiences, right? They only remember the highlights or the really bad bits. And this might seem obvious, but if you put it into context of customer service, this means that customers aren't likely to remember good service. They remember bad service. They remember bad service forever somehow. And they remember exceptional service, like way above and beyond. But customers expect good service. So when they receive it, it's not remarkable, which stinks to hear. And I'm often the bearer of this bad news when I have to explain to tour guides that no matter how amazing and interesting their facts are, customers will rarely remember the details. They'll only remember that their guide gave a lot of interesting facts, right? But this can be good news as well, because a few strategically placed moments of exceptional service not only makes for a memorable experience, but it can overshadow any negatives that might occur. So in this article, I'm going to explain the magic of the peak end rule and offer 3 ways to incorporate this concept to create a memorable experience. This is written from the perspective of tours and activities specifically, but it can be applied to any service experience given by customer-facing employees. So, the peak end rule is one of my favorite concepts ever. It explains that people often remember only a small portion of an entire experience, right? So, in fact, people tend to forget the length of an experience. For example, a vacation or a university experience. And instead, they rate the entire experience based on 2 elements. 1, the best or worst moments. These can be considered peaks and valleys. And 2, the beginning and ending. These can be called transition moments. So, while valleys might be unavoidable, for example, rain on a walking tour, or a ride that breaks down at an amusement park, or an airplane that has been overbooked, peaks can be easily created and injected into the experience, particularly during transition moments, for an extra boost to sort of overshadow any valleys that might happen. For example, I was in Athens this last January. I'm not going to remember every single detail of that trip, especially if someone asks me in a year from now, "Oh, you went to Athens? How was it?" I'm not going to remember every single moment, every single second of the day. So things that would stand out for me might be I got a great restaurant recommendation from our local guide and had a few amazing dinner experiences. So that's a peak for me. I also got an amazing vintage shop recommendation, and I bought an amazing jacket for €10. That's another big peak. I'll also remember that I was there for work. That was kind of stressful, so maybe that's a valley. The weather was also kind of cool and rainy in January in Athens, and I was underdressed because I didn't prepare well, so that was a valley also. And also, I think I'll remember that I flew through Istanbul's brand new airport. It was just very shiny and new and had amazing amenities. So that was a peak as well. So if you look at that list of what I've just mentioned, I had more peaks than valleys, right? Moreover, one of my positive experiences flying through the new airport happened at the beginning and the end of the trip. It's like an extra boost, right? The transition moment. So if asked, I would most definitely say in a year from now, "Oh, love Athens," right? Had I had more valleys or a really big valley that outweighed all of the positive elements of the trip, or had my airport experience been crummy, both arriving and departing, I would probably have a negative connotation with the trip, right? And that's what this peak end rule proves. I'm keeping this very simple to keep this short, but I will link in the article to a really good read that goes into depth about the peak end rule in terms of how it defines customer experience. So, how can you use this peak end rule to create a memorable experience? 1, understand what the customer is buying, and over deliver. In my experience, very few frontline employees have been encouraged to follow the entire journey of a customer. What does the marketing infer about the experience through the website, through campaigns? With tour guides, they always make sure they have gone to the employer's website and actually looked up the tour that they give. Rare in my experience that a tour guide has actually done that. Looking at the tour online, how is it advertised? What do they actually describe in the language? What inclusions are listed? A very, very simple way to create a peak is to go one step beyond what the customer expectations are, right? So you have to do this research to understand the bare minimum that you have to hit in order to prevent any valleys, right? Again, that bare minimum of good service. So as an example that I've experienced myself as a tour guide is having a tour guide memorize the names of all of the customers on the tour, right? This is obviously easier with small group day tours, but customers don't expect a guide to learn their names. Customers have a general understanding that guides give this same tour to many people. So when a guide addresses them by their name halfway through, it's a really positive touch and goes above and beyond. Going one step further, okay, so you take this peak and you put it into the transitions. So let's say at the beginning of the tour, a guide can make a show of remembering everyone's names, right? Almost like publicly setting themselves up for the challenge. And at the end of the tour, okay, the other transition moment, they can show off how well they did by thanking everyone by name. Maybe it rained during that tour. Maybe the service was slow at one of the stops. But with the peak end rule, it is more likely that what the customer will remember about that experience is how impressive it was that the guide remembered 15 new names. Very useful. Number 2, pre-plan spontaneous surprises that are easily replicable. Nothing kills a special moment faster than having it be stale and obviously standard routine. It has to feel organic, even if you do it every single time. Let's say, for example, you work at a hotel in Moscow, right? And they offer a free drink to customers as they check into their rooms. A nice, but not uncommon treat. Instead of simply handing drinks to customers, what if that server, after presenting the drink, explains to them that Russians don't actually say cheers, right? Most people think Russians say na zdrowie when they drink. They don't. Typically, they give a spontaneous toast, something that they've thought up in the moment that is relevant and heartfelt. The server can then proceed to give the guests, the customers, an improvised toast, right? This creates a positive and really special moment right at the beginning of that hotel experience. But if they make it feel as if they're creating it special on the spot, the customer would never know that they're actually saying a very similar toast to every single customer, right? The customer won't know. And as a customer, you're not going to write on your postcard home that the hotel gave you a free drink. It's not super exciting, but you might write home that you had this really amazing, cool local experience that involved a special Russian toast that a local gave to you, right? It makes it special. If you want to look deeper into that, I highly, highly, highly recommend the book The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. I could write a book about that book, but I won't go into detail about it now. So they go deeper into how to define and create these moments. The third and final way to incorporate the peak end rule to make an experience memorable is to remember to be inclusive when thinking of peaks and valleys. What is expected as basic customer service can drastically differ depending on where your customer is coming from, right? So be sure to familiarize yourself with your demographic, understanding clearly that what would be considered a peak or valley in one culture might not be the same in another. It's going to save you a lot of time and energy to do that research, believe me. One really easy way to do this is just to take stock of what your current customers already perceive as a peak, right? Ask customers this simple question. If you remember one thing about this experience, about this day, about this hotel, about this tour, about this park, what will it be, right? You might be surprised what their answer is. Again, tour guides, do not be offended if they don't state several of the amazing facts you've taught them. But listen to what they have to say. And furthermore, you can take this data as a base, expanding upon whatever the most common peaks are and making it even better defined and easier to replicate.